equivalent fractions. Now, in order to understand equivalent fractions, we first need to know the definition. So equivalent fractions are fractions that are exactly the same size, but they have different numerators and denominators. In order to understand this visually, if you look at the bars on the left hand side, let's just suppose that they are chocolate bars. Each chocolate bar is exactly the same size. The only difference is that each of the chocolate bars has a different number of pieces. Now, for us to understand equivalent fractions, I'm just going to hide half of each of the bars and we're going to focus on one half. So the first thing, if we look at the half on this chocolate bar and if we compare it to the 2/4 that we have on the chocolate bar below, you can see that they're exactly the same size. So what I can say is 1/2, which is a half, is the same as, or equals, because remember equals means the same as, equals 2/4 or 2/4, because we have the two bars or the two pieces of the bar of chocolate which are a quarter and they're exactly the same as a half. Moving further down to the third bar of chocolate, let's compare that to the bar just above it. So in this bar, which is split up into quarters, we have 2/4. Now if you compare it to the bar below it, it is exactly the same size as 3/6. And I think that the last one, which is the fourth one, you'll be able to explain yourself. You can see that they are split up into tenths, 1/10, and they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths, which are exactly the same size as 3/6. So I can say that 3/6 is the same size as 5/10. Excellent. Now, what do you notice about all of these numbers? Do you notice a relationship between the numerator and the denominator? That's right. So if you look at the numerator, it is exactly half of the denominator. And if you look at our first chocolate bar, that piece is worth a half, because it's half of the whole chocolate bar. And every other piece below it is exactly the same, but they're split up into more parts. So that means each one of these is actually equal to a half. And that is why they are all equivalent fractions. So just a quick summary. A half is the same as a half. 2/4 or 2/4. If I divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2, which is the highest common factor that goes into both the numerator and the denominator, then that gives me a half. And if I continue dividing the others by a highest common factor, that also gives me a half for each one of them. So you can see now that they are equivalent fractions. They are exactly the same. They are all worth a half, even though the numerator and the denominator are different. Fantastic.